Hey guys, it's Kris with another Kickstarter board game and RPG rundown. Today we're going to start with board games, and first up is Merchant's Cove. Now a reminder that most of these board games are ending in the next 14 days, although in this particular video I think I've gone out about a week further than that, just because I'm going to be on the road for the next couple of weeks and I'm not sure when I'll be able to sit down and record another one of these videos. So I tried to fill as much of it as I could. As far as what I'm personally backing, I only have a couple of active Kickstarters backed right now. Most of them have ended. I think they're all on here, or they're ones I plan to back. Merchant's Cove is one of those. I have been keeping an eye on this through its development on the Facebook groups that I'm in, and it looks really interesting. It's asymmetrical. You are playing a different merchant, competing against your fellow merchants to please the most customers and make the most money. You're also balancing ships as they come into the cove and dock, and base that off of where they're going to land, what type of customers they are, what they're interested in. It looks really intriguing. The game's about $100 for the base game. I think the all-in is worth doing because it includes the Innkeeper and the Oracle, who I think they did on purpose look like kind of the most interesting ones of them, to me anyway. I do like that each of these different some of them are worker placement, some of them are engine building. They're very different types of merchants and they do very different things. The boats are fun looking. They're doing really well. They're at 495,000 right now. They've got about a day left by the time this is posted. And I just think it looks like a fun game. It's got a lot of little tokens and time markers and miniatures and marbles, and it's just interesting. The art style is gorgeous. I love it. It's got a lot of personality to it. It seems to take place in a world that's a little on the bizarre side in a good way. I have to admit that the Chronomancer one, that's obviously Marty McFly and Doc Brown, is a little cheesy. It's probably my least favorite of them. From what I've seen of videos, this is a little bit of a dense game to learn, but once you know how to play it, it goes pretty smoothly, and it just looks fun. So that's Merchant's Cove. They're doing really well. You'll have to check out all the different styles of play in it because it's impressive. The fact that they can make this many different characters play that differently and still have all of them cooperate together in a game is pretty damn impressive. So that's Merchant's Cove. Next up, we've got Solar Storm, which I've backed. I think this game looks really fun. It's also only $23 with free US shipping and includes a solo mode. I have been in love with this cover since day one. I think it's awesome. I think the logo's great. I think pretty much everything about the graphic and layout design really appeals to that old crunchy sci-fi fan in me. In Solar Storm, you can work together or die alone in a co-op survival game for 1 to 4 players that will make even the most hardened crew and solo players swelter. It's got hand management, use of action, and teamwork. It looks really cool. It's got different rooms. It's got a little bit of dice rolling, some different meeples. I do think I'm really torn. I ended up going with the base pledge on this, I think. I don't remember what I backed at. But the deluxe version is... Oh, maybe I haven't backed it yet. Maybe I'm just planning to back it. Haha, there we go. Now I'm planning to back it. The only difference between them is that the deluxe edition has larger custom meeples and 8 rooms, and the difference in cost is about $6, which is pretty reasonable. I am not a huge fan of the larger meeples, but you know, for $6 for unique meeples and a few more rooms, that's pretty cool. It's it's kind of a weird option instead of just having them there, but whatever. It's cool. I'm down with this game. I think it looks really fun. I think their page is very simple in an intelligent manner, and I'm always looking for solo small box games. Next up is Aeon Trespass Odyssey, which is doing, as you can see, in the time it's taken for me to upload this, it's done like another $10,000. So it's doing just fine for itself. It's got about 20 days on this guy, so it's got some time. In this game, it is a tactical battle campaign style game for 1 to 4 players. It claims to have over 200 hours worth of unique game content and over 1,500 cards. It looks insane. The game itself is $130. They also have a smaller one that's at $70, smaller, quotation marks there, that's called a Prelude, that kind of introduces the game, and it kind of, I think it's just like a smaller intro version of it for people that are balking at the $130 that will then regret not having the Prelude stuff. It looks really good. I don't know if I'll actually end up backing this just purely from a money standpoint and a time standpoint, but I do love that it's solo. I think it looks great. The art in it's really interesting. It's got some nice like digital oil painted style, some nice iconography. I'm not a tremendous fan of the miniatures and the monsters in it, which is one of the things that makes me a little hesitant, but I do love this like Greco-Roman old school art style that they use for things. The stretch goals are interesting as well. They've got all sorts of gear cards, story expansions. It looks great. It hasn't been on Kickstarter for very long here. The minis look cool. The minis look really cool. They're just like unique looking enough that I do like what I'm seeing of them. It's just so much in this that I'm a little overwhelmed. Like, I don't know what I'm getting with the pledge on it versus what I'm not and what I have to add on. Like, I assume that these are the ones that are included in it because you can see some of these guys, like the weird pyramid head guy. And they're really cool looking. I'm sure I wouldn't be disappointed if I ended up getting this game, but I may end up not backing it just purely because it's $130 plus shipping. But man, they do look really neat. Look how cool that is when it's painted up. It's gorgeous. The map tiles are really interesting too. They've got it's a little Roman, a little Mayan, Aztec, like Central America looking. It's just really interesting. I think it's a cool looking game. I would probably dive all in on this if I spent some more time learning more about it. But anyway, that's Aeon Trespass. Next up is Moonrakers by 4 Studios. This is their first Kickstarter. They're at $211+ on this. It's a tabletop game mixing temporary alliances and negotiations with traditional deck building. I think their gifts are awesome. I love this retro Illustrator feel. It annoys me that every single image on this page is a GIF with static behind it. It makes it kind of hard to read. This was almost unreadable on my phone, unfortunately. The ones that did load were a little too small for me to read very clearly. But the game looks great. I love the graphic design. I like sci-fi stuff. I think the game play looks pretty interesting. It's got a tiny like push your luck aspect to it, and it looks really tight. The game itself is fairly simple as far as what it comes with. It's got a few boards, some dice, and a bunch of cards, basically. It does have some little ship tokens, which are fun. They're PVC, which I think is an interesting choice. It reminds me of the little pencil toppers I used to get in the quarter tub like those little circle things. It's also weird that it comes with a graphic novel. I think that's kind of cool. The game itself is running for $55 for the base game. The Kickstarter exclusive is $10 more, and you get an exclusive box and an expansion. Not a huge fan of that. I think that that's unnecessary, but it's also only $10 more, so I guess I see why so many more people have backed it. So anyway, that's Moonrakers. I think that looks pretty cool. I haven't backed it yet, but I plan to. Evil Dead 2. Oh, this game. Oh, this game. I don't think this is going to actually pledge through, but this is Jasco picking up the ill-fated, destroyed, lied about, stupidity-laden version that was on Kickstarter originally. From the sounds of things, this game may not actually have anything to do with the other one's design or anything like that. I know that some people got a promo Ash figure, and they've been saying that it may not work with this game as it sits right now. But, you know, I applaud what they're doing with this. This game is designed to be kind of what they're calling a heartthrob campaign that allows you to, if you backed the previous one and got screwed, get a copy if this funds. Pretty cool idea. I think it's very nice of them to do, but the game's just kind of underwhelming. It feels kind of half-assedly put together, and it doesn't feel like there's as much heart in it as there should be. So I think that's why it's kind of underwhelming and underperforming. After the Empire by Grey Fox Games. This is their 18th Kickstarter. They're at 84,000 and they have 16 days left. This game looks really interesting. I've seen this game at, I believe it was SaltCon that I checked it out. And you are building, you're fortifying your empire basically in anticipation of an attack. And you're setting up and you're trying to build resources. You're trying to make sure that your castle is built the way it needs to be to prevent a horde of invading encroachers on your land. They've got different types of castles, tons of minis. Like this comes with a huge amount of minis for $85. It honestly seems like a great deal. I don't know how large they are. I'm actually curious about that because that is an insane amount of figures. That's 75, 175, 200 plus characters, tons of cards, different game boards, all sorts of meeples and cubes. For the price, I'm shocked at how good that deal is. And the game's cool. Like, I love the reinforcement. I think it's fairly small if you look at this, because those are like the wooden cubes with the figures, but I'm not really sure. I haven't looked into it that closely. Okay, so they're running 13 to 16 mil. So that's kind of a weird size. It doesn't exactly fall into any of the game characters I have, but I love it. Like, I love this look that they've got going. That's like the stained glass on the backside of it. I think the figures are like this cool old school shape. I'm really down with this game. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm just worried I'm not going to be able to pick it up just purely from money. It does say it's only $10 shipping for the US, which is kind of surprising for a game this large. So that's called After the Empire, and it's a tower defense game, but it's got a lot more strategy to it than a lot of the tower defense games you get where you're literally just, keep people from getting in. This has got a little more of a preparatory aspect to it, and it's kind of before the storm, which I think is really cool. Windward by Eldorado Games from these guys are at $120,000, and they got about a week and a half left. The art in this game is beautiful. It's got a cool round board, and you're playing characters kind of cruising around harvesting stuff from the clouds and avoiding sky whales, which, how do you go wrong with that? It's $55 for the game. It's got some cool sky boats and things. It's kind of a engine building / pickup and delivery game. I think it looks really fun. I love the art design. I think the board itself is gorgeous, and the art is just stunningly beautiful. I love everything about the art in this game. Even the color design choices for the minis look great. You do a lot of hunting and delivering things to cities and pirate things. The elevation makes a difference in it. I think the game looks really fun. I've watched a couple of videos on it now, and I just get more excited when I see it. So they've unlocked a few things on their stretch goals. They've unlocked alternate maps on the backside of the board, a couple of new different versions of creatures and supply cards. The dice are now custom embedded ones. So it looks really cool. I think they're kind of doing a good job. I'm really surprised that they're not doing better in some ways, because I think the game looks awesome. Next up is Fuhrman, Sultan's Decree. This one's struggling a little bit. It's only got about 2 weeks left, and it's a worker placement game. And I'm throwing it out here because I think it looks really interesting. I love the color scheme in it. It reminds me of some Euro comics I used to read back in the 90s. And it's a 30, 60-minute thing. One of the problems with this is it's a 3 to 6 player game. So there's not a lot of flex there. And although I love this art design and like the character style, the color scheme in particular is great, I can understand that it's not as appealing to some people. I think it looks cool. I would like to see it funded, just because I think it does look like a fun game. I will say I believe this is the creator's first Kickstarter. They've only backed a few other games as well, and they are located in Istanbul, which does make a difference as far as that is concerned. When I talk about Kickstarter to people that are kickstarting games for the first time, I always suggest that they back games. You can't know how Kickstarter works unless you've gone through Kickstarters run by other people. And in this particular case, I feel like they have done a few kind of strange things with their page that they wouldn't have done had they backed a lot of other Kickstarters. But it looks like a fun game. I feel like it deserves more than 141 backers. But we'll see. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on it. Scarlet Knight by Big Fish Games. This is their first created, and they've only backed 5 games. So these guys, I'm highlighting this game because it should be right up my alley, and instead I'm just kind of disappointed by it. And I feel bad about that, but first of all, they've played really heavily into the gimmick part with the lighting and the music on it. But it's also just like the sculpts are really soft on it, and the modular game board looks great. I will say that much. Like, all of the art on the boards themselves looks excellent. I'm really impressed with it, but the characters just, I don't know, they really let me down. It looks really interesting. I would like to play it, but I just don't think I'm interested in backing it. Part of it is that it's app-based as well, and they do say that there's cards that allow you to play it, but I'm still hesitant to play any of the app-based games, even from the bigger companies, let alone some of these smaller ones where I have played, and their apps have just kind of let me down, or they don't work the way they're supposed to. But I'd like to see this happen. It's got a great, it's at like 39,000 right now, so it's doing okay. But I feel like I'd have to play this game before I bought it, I guess is what I'm saying. My last board game that I'm interested in hasn't technically launched yet, so this is a preview page. And this is for the Isofarian Guard by Skybound Games. This game Sky Kingdom Games, not Skybound. This game looks awesome. It's a 1 to 4 player game, I believe. It's a epic campaign. 1 to 2 players, actually. and each game session is scheduled to run 45 to 90 minutes. It's a narrative-driven adventure, and you're traveling around the country of Isofar. And it's interesting. One of the things they're doing with this is you're basically picking a duo to wander around with. So the miniatures are linked, which I think is kind of weird. They really like their poker chip games at Sky Kingdom. But it's got these like gorgeous city maps that spill out when you get to a city on the location. It's got tons of cards. It has all sorts of story journals, and it has like reactive things based off of what you did with a previous character. It's very Skyrim. It's very Skyrim based in terms of gameplay and crafting and how you're exploring the world. But it's got a little personality of its own, which I really like. Of these bigger campaign-style games, this is one that I've been pretty impressed with. I think it looks really cool. I'm not a huge fan of the bag-building combat system, but the way they do it does actually look like it's, in some ways, actually more elegant than Trudvang and a few of the others. I really like the way they do their equipment and armor and crafting upgrades, and you get stuff when you defeat things, and you can use those to upgrade your armor and things. It's really cool. So anyway, that's Isofarian Guard. I believe this actually goes live tomorrow on the 10th. So when this comes out, it should be live. And I will definitely be backing this game if I can justify it, because I think it looks really fun. And that's about it for early and mid-September on Kickstarter for tabletop games that I thought were interesting and worth talking about. Come back around for our RPG rundown in a couple of days, where we look at RPG, tabletop, and tabletop terrain that I think are interesting that are live on Kickstarter right now. In the meantime, you can find us on patreon.com/deeplydapper, Deeply Dapper Games, or on Instagram under @DeeplyDapperGames as well. Thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe, and may you live in interesting times.